You ready for one last talk? I'm Stephen Dandaneau, and a member of the faculty in the Department of Sociology, Anthropology, and Social Work. This is James Geary. He's a student. How'd you get over here?
I'm not that noticeable, am I?
Yeah, you're not inconspicuous, James. Since you're here, why don't you get us started?
The ivory tower. It's an oft-used symbol of the perceived disconnect between the academic world and the quote-unquote real world. It's a symbol so often used that it's become sort of a stereotype. But as I learned here at K-State, all stereotypes begin with an element of truth. Dr. Dandaneau and I collaborated on a disability studies course that was designed to analyze the cultural and societal context of disability, as well as the current state of the disability rights movement. Being as we wanted to use a service learning pedagogy, we would ask questions of our students that we did not know the answer to. We wanted them to find the answer. But when we asked these questions, we would get what I think every educator in the audience has gotten at some point, the blank stare. I have to admit, I've seen this type of conditioning in my peers, and I'm guilty of it myself.
Well, and why?
Because we expect answers to define problems.
Yeah. You know, as sociologists, we call that sometimes the problem of alienation. Think of the assembly line worker, or maybe the office, space denizen of the cubicle. That's people who are disconnected from their work, who are disconnected from the process of work, who feel powerless and not involved. So if our students are like workers of this sort, then they're disengaged and they're not learning.
Well, in as much that schooling can be often defined as giving correct responses to defined questions, I don't think we will ever, or it will be very difficult to, solve the problem of student alienation. And this has become an increasing problem because the world outside is becoming more dynamic. The amount of data and the speed at which we collect it has increased dramatically in just the last 2 years alone. And at least within me as a student, it creates kind of a dissonance. When I ask, when am I ever going to use this? It's not that I'm rejecting the knowledge itself or that I don't believe it has value. I just have trouble connecting what it means beyond the next text question, because I can go, well, Excel can do that. Why do I need to know that formula? So we disengage.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was teaching this K-State First seminar last semester, and there we are in the School of Leadership Studies, and we're going to use a service learning pedagogy. And as you've heard, it's about getting out of the classroom, connecting with people in the community, bringing the students directly into contact with that which they're learning about. And then here's James. He decides, hey, I'm going to sit in on your class. In other words, he's going to bring the outside right on the inside and provide us a service, because I'll tell you, day in and day out, each class meeting, those students would listen to James, who was very discerning and courageous in sharing with his fellow colleagues his own experiences and perspectives about disability, its meaning, its significance. It was dynamite from an educational point of view, as you can imagine, to have that. Sure, we went outside the classroom, but in a way we didn't have to. And it made me think a lot about what learning was about.
And I really think there are two facets to being educated. One is the acquisition of knowledge, which we do very well here at Kansas State. But the other one is the utilization of knowledge, the ability to apply that knowledge in live environments in the real world. And I believe students would be more engaged if we let them have a measure of intellectual freedom. Don't just tell us the answers you expect us to give all the time, but let us find those answers ourselves and connect those to our passions and let us utilize the techniques that we learn in free-form environments. Then education becomes something we not only want to have, or have to have, it becomes something we want to have. We take ownership of it.
You know, throughout history, people have talked like this, are folks who are confronting alienation with the antidote of freedom. And because, you know, James, you're in the College of Business, an MBA student and everything, I won't name any names of the kind of people I'm thinking about here, but so I don't want to get you in trouble with the faculty or anything, but
Thank you for that.
yeah, you're welcome.
Let me offer 3 practical ideas that we have come up with to help solve this problem of alienation and student disengagement. The first of which being create assignments without measurable requirements, which sounds a bit heretical, I know, but before you get your torches and pitchforks out, please listen. If these assignments are created, what that allows us to do is to utilize the techniques we learn and figure out for ourselves how we can use them. And then we can discuss and become not only students of the subject, but create that desire to learn more about it ourselves and become more of intellectuals ourselves. The second of which is to create situations with fluid environments. This has primarily been done in my education through the use of simulations, where you get defined inputs, but those defined inputs, as in the real world, don't always yield the expected output, which will help the student try and discover new techniques that they can use to further their knowledge and become more skilled in whatever field or area that they're in. And the third technique is to expose students to people who are experts outside of campus, and not only bring those people in to lecture the students, but bring them in to converse and allow the students to challenge them. This not only lets the student discover how what they're learning is being applied in the actual world, but may spark an interest in them, as it has in me, in my field of study, in how can we further what these experts are doing and what comes next, wanting to know what comes next. I have a personal interest in this topic because I've seen both sides. I've seen what happens when this type of learning doesn't occur, and I've seen what happens when it does. I've gone to many doctors in my lifetime, and 99% of them have said that there was nothing that they could do for me, that I should be institutionalized. And the reason that they say that, as I find out later, is that's the answer that was related to them in the textbook while they were in school about my condition. I've been lucky enough to find those doctors who use the techniques that they learned in school, but combine them in new and interesting ways where they didn't know what was going to happen, but they were interested in finding out, as I was, which is why I'm sitting in front of you here today.
So you're saying the problem is student alienation, the solution's student freedom, because people will be more engaged in their learning and they'll be able to apply knowledge to unique and fluid situations after they graduate.
Right.
The emphasis being on student freedom.
Right.
Yeah, I figured you'd say that. Wow. I'm sure. Yeah.
If I could leave you with just one thing, it would be that you're here to mold young minds, that is certain. But never forget that those minds are minds within themselves. And if we can get them thinking about where we could go next while they're still in school, we could see progress at a much faster rate.
James and I, wow, I'm grateful for his presence in the classroom last semester, and we're both very grateful for your attention this evening. Thank you very much.